Hello, grammar and writing students, and here we are at the beginning of yet another week, but right before spring break. So I hope you are excited about your upcoming spring break and a little break from homework and writing and all that stuff. But today, before we finish up, I have a probably relatively short lesson for you. We are going to be talking about using adjectives correctly, and this will end your chapter on adjectives. So then I have a little project actually that'll count as your test grade. So look for that. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. But today, let's jump into our using adjectives correctly. So I want you to take a look at your gray box, and we are going to be on page, I'll get there for you, page 360. So turn to page 360 in your green book. Have that in front of you. I'm working through that chapter, and I will be talking about some different issues that come up with using adjectives correctly. So just as we look at this, there are 5 bullet points. The first one is probably obvious, but sometimes we don't think about it in our writing. Use an adjective only when it contributes something worthwhile. So I have given the example before of some of my younger students like to put lots of adjectives. You know, the beautiful, blue, gigantic, humongous, gargantuan, sky. And all of those are great words, but we don't need all of them. And so think about what is worthwhile when you are writing. Use articles correctly in referring to one or more individuals. The articles are a, an, and the. And do not use a and an after kind of or sort of. That would be something like kind of a pain, kind of or sort of, and afterthought. Be careful when you are using those. We'll look at some better examples than mine in just a second. Do not use this here, that there, or them people as adjectives. It's just not formal sounding. Use less to indicate how much about a singular noun and fewer to indicate how many about a plural noun. That's probably the most confusing of all of them. So let's take a look at these one by one. Number 1, and you can follow along in your book. These are all listed there. Use an adjective only when it contributes something worthwhile. And I've already spoken about this one. If you were to say something like a little midget or a tall giant, a loud storm, some of those are not necessarily needed. Maybe the loud storm would be okay, but we already know that a midget is going to be little in size, that a giant is going to be tall in size. If you were to say, the rich millionaire came to my house last night, well, a millionaire is rich just in and of who he is. So we don't necessarily need to attach an adjective. Maybe give me something else. The handsome millionaire, the poor dressing millionaire. So there's other things that you can use to describe them. The second one, use articles correctly in referring to one or more individuals. We've already talked about this in previous lessons. Remember, the word the is going to indicate some things about the sentence. The rich and powerful king coveted Judah's wealth. Well, it was one king. He was both rich and powerful. Now, I could say the rich king and the powerful king coveted Judah's wealth. That would be 2 different kings. So the word the gives a clue as to how many people we're talking about. Look at the second example. The preacher and school teacher came for a visit. That means that this person was both a preacher and a school teacher. So you use the word the as a place marker for each person. The rich king, the powerful king, the poor king, however many kings there were, that's going to indicate lots of kings. But here we just have one. So be careful with that one. And then finally, or not finally, number 3, do not use a or an after kind of or sort of. And so here are the incorrect examples and then the corrections. What kind of a tree was Lebanon famous for? We don't need the word the in there. It's just an extra word. It's an extra syllable to have to say. What kind of tree was Lebanon famous for? Do not boast. That sort of a response indicates a proud heart. You just say that sort of response indicates a proud heart. And there may be times where you really need that article adjective, so I would encourage you to say your sentence aloud so that you can make that determination about whether you would need it or not. Number 4, do not use this here, that there, or them people. So here's the examples. This here command told Israel to destroy all Canaanites. That their disobedience was a serious mistake. Them people later became a snare to Israel. You can hear the problem with this. We're adding extra words. It sounds very informal. Almost, this is a common issue in Southern dialect. And so we need to make sure that we don't use here, there, or them as part of our sentences. Instead, we would say this command told Israel. That disobedience was a serious mistake. Those people later became a snare to Israel. So just be careful and don't put in extra words when you don't need them. Number 5, use less to indicate how much about a singular noun and fewer to indicate how many about a plural noun. So here is, look at the incorrect. I had less spelling words wrong this week than last week, and instead it's plural. We want to say I had fewer spelling words wrong. This pizza has less mushrooms than that one. It should be this pizza has fewer mushrooms. Now the example at the top, we have less cake. There was one cake. We have less cake and fewer cookies. That's plural than we had expected. So this is more about using the words less and fewer. To use less, we are going to indicate something about a singular noun. Fewer, to indicate something about a plural noun. So remember those as you go through your homework. So I would encourage you to take a quick look at the class practice. I'm not going to go over that in this video. I'm trying to keep things short and sweet for this last week of school before spring break. But take a look at the class practice. If any of them spark questions in you, please let me know. And then otherwise do the homework, and I will plan to see you on Wednesday.